They are asserting themselves on our land.
Tonight, First Nations in Ontario call foul on new legislature meant to give the Métis Nation of Ontario the right to self-governance.
It's lighter today. We'll sleep well this evening.
Plus, the feds and 21 First Nations reach a $10 billion treaty settlement.
I thought I would try the same thing here. So I approached the manager and I asked her if that was possible.
And hundreds of patrons of a Sioux Lookout Tim's get a free coffee in memory of a woman who worked there for years. Good evening, Tansei Anin. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. A group of chiefs from Ontario First Nations were in Ottawa on Monday to voice their opposition to forthcoming legislation that will formally recognize the Métis Nation of Ontario's right to self-govern. At a press conference, the chiefs said the legislation could encroach on their inherent rights. It is expected to be introduced in Parliament sometime this week, and it will also recognize Métis governments in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Temagami First Nation Chief Shelley Moore-Frappier says they have had problems with Métis asserting land rights on their territory in the past.
They are asserting themselves on our land. And on the document on our territory, we have a Métis who has erected a cabin at Pond Lake who is under asserting their Métis rights in our territory. Temagami First Nation, Tamiagama Anishinaabe have always been in the position that there are no Métis in our territory.
The Métis Nation of Ontario released a statement today responding to what they say are First Nations attacks on Ontario Métis and Métis denialism. In its statement, MNO said Métis denialism needs to stop and said it's distasteful and lateral violence when First Nations leaders do it. MNO says the Métis self-government legislation is only about internal function like recognizing Métis elections and child and family services. MNO had tweeted out photos of the presidents of Métis Nation Saskatchewan and Métis Nation Alberta, along with Minister Mark Miller, as they were watching the tabling of the legislation. It's not just First Nations that are sounding the alarm with the Métis government recognition and self-government agreement legislation. The Manitoba Metis Federation has been voicing its concerns with the Métis Nation Ontario for years. In Alberta, the Métis Settlements of Alberta General Council says the legislation is deeply flawed. For more, we're joined by Dave Lamouche, the president of the Métis Settlements General Council. Dave, thank you for being here today. The Métis Settlements General Council represents the 8 Métis settlements in Alberta. What are your concerns with the Métis government recognition and self-government agreement legislation?
Well, we have a few concerns, actually. There is the agreement that the Métis Nation of Alberta signed purports to represent all Métis in Alberta. And that is false. There is another group that is also saying the same thing that the Métis Settlements General Council is saying. So we are totally different organizations. The Métis Settlements General Council have been a legislative body recognized by Alberta as a self-governing body since 1990. The Métis settlements have been around since the early 30s, and we have our own land base. We are the only legislated land-based Métis, and the Métis Nation is totally different. They are an organization, a non-profit society who purport to represent us as well, and that is totally wrong and false. They have no jurisdiction over us.
Well, Dave, some people might be saying, isn't recognition of Métis rights a good thing? Well, what do you say to that?
We're not saying that the Métis rights itself and the recognition by Canada, I think that's a really good thing. I think that's a huge step by Canada. there are certain sections that they have agreed, or the agreement that they have with the MNA purports to speak on behalf of all Alberta and of all Métis in Alberta. So that's our biggest concern. I think it's like an overreach for MNA to do that. It's like, say, Edmonton telling Calgary, we're going to speak on your behalf, and that's just totally wrong.
All right, and what would be the potential impact on the Métis settlements if this legislation is indeed approved?
Well, we believe we don't know what's in the legislation right now. I think that's going to be tabled this afternoon. Once we find out, we can probably answer that question more thoroughly. But recognizing the self-government agreement that they have with the MNA as it stands is wrong. There are certain sections there that refer to the Métis settlements and also the Constitution of the Métis Nation of Alberta. So they have language in there, certain sections that say we will do this for the Métis settlements. And the other thing that the big thing is about citizenship. They won't allow any other Aboriginal group be citizens of the MNA except with the Métis Settlements General Council. So there's, there has to be some type of overreach by MNA by doing this. It's going to cause a lot of havoc and also, disgruntled members who are dual members right now. So they're both members of the Métis Settlements General Council and also with the MNA. Now, who speaks on their behalf? So that's going to be an issue that's coming up as well.
Well, and Dave, given everything that we've talked about here so far, what would you like to see happen as we go forward?
Well, I think those sections, the legislation needs to be stopped, first of all. I think we need to be consulted. I think we need to have some input into the or those certain sections need to be taken out of the agreement with the MNA. We have our own process going. We have our own framework with the government of Canada and also the MOU. There are certain steps that we have taken forward, and we need to get our process going as well.
Well, sorry, Dave. Yeah, there's certainly plenty to think about when it comes to this. We'll have to leave it there, but we certainly appreciate your time and your thoughts on this subject. So thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Late this afternoon, Métis Nation Alberta tweeted that they had been advised the legislation will not be introduced today, but that they remain optimistic the legislation will be brought forward soon. APTN News has reached out to Crown Indigenous Relations for clarification, but have not heard back. And after this week, the MPs aren't expected to sit again until September the 18th. Well, we want to hear what you think about the Métis government recognition and self-government agreement legislation. Here's how to continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca, or you can leave us a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. In other news, the Donny Creek fire in northern British Columbia is now the largest wildfire ever recorded in the province's history. It's still considered out of control, and some experts say it could keep growing this summer and even into the fall. The fire has burned 534,000 hectares. That's nearly the size of PEI. Meantime, a cooler, wet weather is providing some encouraging news on Vancouver Island. The Cameron Bluffs wildfire near Port Alberni is now under control. That fire has been burning for 2 weeks, scorching 230 hectares. Showers are in the forecast for the next few days. All right, we have to pause the news a moment, but still ahead, Seneca College is taking a closer look at a Norvell Morrison painting in its collection.
Morrison is an iconic, he's the grandfather of the Woodland School of Art.
Welcome back to APTN National News. Last week, the Nova Scotia government extended an emergency order to keep the gates of a fish passage closed. But Mi'kmaq water protectors say the closure is killing the fish. About 30 Mi'kmaq water protectors and their supporters held a call for action at the Nova Scotia Legislative Building in Halifax on Monday. They demanded the provincial government to open the gates at the Windsor Causeway so fish can swim up the Avon River to spawn. The gates were closed a couple of weeks ago to fill Lake Pisiquid with water, so an adequate water supply is available to fight wildfires. The province announced last week the wildfires are under control, so Mi'kmaq grandmother Ducey Howe wonders why the gates should remain shut.
So there's hundreds of gaspereau and also salmon trying to go upriver, unable to spawn. And it needs to be opened, and they need to stop murdering our relatives every day for no real, logical reason. There's lots of resources and ways to get water if needed.
Well, a watershed moment in a complex and long legal dispute. A proposed $10 billion deal has been reached between the federal government, Ontario, and 21 First Nations. It centers on a broken promise to pay an outstanding debt that dates back more than 170 years. CTV's Eric Tashner explains.
The settlement is being called historic, a moment Chief Dean Sayers of the Batchewana First Nation says he will never forget.
Tears of joy, and my heart is lighter today. We'll sleep well this evening.
The deal will see the federal and Ontario governments each paying $5 billion to settle the Robinson-Huron Treaty Annuities case.
It's the commencement of a larger agenda.
Since 2012, 21 Robinson-Huron Treaty First Nations have been in court battling senior levels of government. The First Nations accuse the governments of failing to increase annuity payments as resource revenue in the treaty territory grew.
There's a lot to learn for us as governments. There's much more to learn, I think, for the segment of Canada, 95% of it, that doesn't spend their waking hours living the Indigenous experience.
Chief Sayers says the compensation is long overdue. The First Nation communities have been fighting for more than 170 years.
There will be community meetings, there will be individual interviews, questionnaires in regards to how we might move forward with regards to the annuity from a number of perspectives.
Since 1850, the region from Parry Sound to North Bay along the north shore of the lake to Sault Ste. Marie has seen tremendous mineral exploration, along with the expansion of lumber and fishing industries. Yet the annuities paid by the governments to First Nations communities for use of the land has remained the same since 1875 at only $4 per person a year. This in spite of a clause in the treaty that ties the value of the annuity to the expansion of resource development in the region.
There were legal milestones that occurred within the process and relationships that were evolving, and we felt confident that this was the time to take action.
There's a lot more work to do.
The 21 First Nations of the Robinson-Huron Treaty, along with both the federal and provincial governments, now have to hammer out a new and better annuity payment for almost 30,000 beneficiaries. Eric Tashner, CTV News, Sudbury.
Is it the real deal? That's what Seneca College in Toronto is asking itself about one of their paintings done by renowned artist Norvell Morrison. Lately, many works supposedly painted by him have turned out to be forgeries. On Thursday, Seneca College hosted an art expert to tell them if their Morrison was indeed the genuine article. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
So is this Norvell Morrison painting fake or real? Seneca College brought in Jonathan Summer of Morrison Art Consulting to tell them.
We applied the whole wide range of analysis methods to this. We looked at materials, we looked at Morrellian analysis, historical analysis, trying to put it into context. We looked at the provenance, and unfortunately we came to the conclusion that it's a fake. Just kidding.
Joking aside, forgeries of the works of major artists like Morrison is a lucrative business. Summers says there are likely more than 6,500 fakes of the artist's work alone out on the market, and it's easy to see why.
Morrison is an iconic, he's the grandfather of the Woodland School of Art. He's probably the most important Indigenous artist that we've ever had in Canada. And so his art is greatly sought after.
When it comes to the forgeries of Morrison's work, Summers says not only is it illegal, but also a form of cultural appropriation.
Because what is this if not the robbing of, it's a form of colonization when people come along, and I can say that a lot of the people who are allegedly involved in this are white people who've come along and who are taking liberties with and stealing the message, the soul of this great Indigenous artist.
Rima Taveras is the manager of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at Seneca College. She says the college is proud of its Indigenous art collection, and it is a major relief the piece Summer examined is indeed real.
Yeah, we're absolutely delighted to find out that it's an authentic Norvell Morrison piece. We purchased it a long time ago, and it's been a part of our collection for a very long time, and so it's nice to have that knowledge that it is authentic and that we are, holding a piece of amazing Norvell Morrison history here.
It's one that's been in their collection for 50 years. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Toronto.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, it's that time where we take one final break here on the show. Our photo of the day and weather are next. Plus, a grieving father hands out free coffee and gift cards to remember his daughter.
A few days later, she phoned me back. She said that her boss or her owner wanted to help match how much I was spending.
Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Clarence Jones sent us this great shot of the Seven Sisters mountain range as seen from along the Skeena River in the Gitxsan Nation. Thanks so much, Clarence, for that. That is a wonderful shot. We always appreciate seeing your territory out that way. And you at home can send your photos to share at aptn.ca, for the chance to be our next photo of the day. All right, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the east coast, 7 in St. John's and 17 in rain in Halifax. Clear and 27 in Happy Valley Goose Bay and 13 in Cartwright. 23 in showers in Quebec City and 29 in Val-d'Or. Clear and 26 in Toronto and 28 in clear North Bay. Clear and 26 in Wawa and sunshine and 31 in Sioux Lookout. Some rain in 21 in Churchill and rain in 25 in Norway House. More rain in 27 in Barons River, and Winnipeg is 34 degrees. 20 degrees in Regina and 21 in Saskatoon. 16 in showers in Buffalo Narrows and 12 in showers in Stony Rapids. Continuing west of 14 in Fort Chipewyan and 18 in Peace River. Showers in 14 in Edmonton and 10 in showers in Calgary. 17 degrees in Vancouver and 26 in Bella Coola. Clear and 20 in Sandspit and 22 degrees in Dease Lake. 24 in Whitehorse and 17 in showers in Rock River. Mix of sun and cloud and 24 in Wrigley and 25 in Trout Lake. 13 in Fort McPherson and 18 in Colville Lake. 7 degrees in Cambridge Bay and 11 in Baker Lake. 2 degrees in Arctic Bay and 11 in Iqaluit. Patrons at the Sioux Lookout, Ontario Tim Hortons were treated to free tea and coffee yesterday. It was a way for grieving dad Gino Metis to honor his 23-year-old daughter Emma, who died last year. Metis gave out 400 single coffee and teas and 20 $25 gift cards to families in her memory. Emma worked at the Sioux Lookout Tims for 2 years, and he thought it was a fitting way to remember her.
I remember from my home community, Sandy Lake, Ontario, that some people would buy like 100 coffees for for people to just come show up. So I thought I would try the same thing here. So I approached the manager and I asked her if that was possible. A few days later, she phoned me back. She said that her boss or her owner wanted to help match how much I was spending.
Such a great story there. The 30th edition of the Inspire Awards aired last night on APTN, APTN Lumi, and the CBC. The awards honor Indigenous trailmakers from across Canada, and APTN's Chris Stewart was there.
Welcome to the 30th anniversary of the Inspire Awards. And you're calling me an icon?
Well, you are. I mean, you won the Inspire Award.
3 decades, Inspire has recognized First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people who have made a difference in their field. From arts to sports, health, business, law, education, and more. Over the years, the nonprofit has helped Indigenous students with over $190 million in aid. 12 more laureates were added this year. Mike DeGagne is the president and CEO of Inspire.
We're honoring Indigenous excellence in a number of different fields, showing the world that Indigenous people are not only meeting but excelling and leading the world in a lot of areas.
Honoring people like Marjorie White, Lifetime Achievement winner for helping establish the Friendship Centers movement across Canada.
Oh, it was very exciting. It was, you know, when you get nominated for something like this, you know, it's like, well, what have I done?
Willow Allen, Ruby Bruce, and Rihanna Morasti.
Rihanna Morasti hails from the Barrenlands First Nation in Manitoba. She won the First Nation Youth category for her work in architecture and climate change.
And it was very overwhelming. It was a call from Mike saying that I won this award, and it just felt very overwhelming to hear that. So it took a long time to process the information, but I'm super grateful.
When I started modeling, it really allowed me to have a lot of confidence in what I look like and realize.
Willow Allen from Inuvik in the Northwest Territories won for Inuit youth for her success in fashion and advocacy for the power of Indigenous women.
About 4 years ago, I moved from my Arctic community in Inuvik, Northwest Territories, and I started modeling. And so since then, I've moved across the country and done different jobs for some really big brands, and I'm now signed with 7 different modeling agencies, and I'm signed with one of the top ones in New York City.
She says winning the Inspire Award is special.
It was so awesome. I never could have imagined getting recognized in such an incredible way, and just hearing about the awards before and just knowing so many amazing people that have been up for it in the past. It's just such an honor to be among so many great people.
And so, yeah, it's just been wild that everything that I've ever dreamt of has been coming true.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Congratulations to all the Inspire Award winners. And that is all we have for you tonight on APTN National News. For news anytime, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. For all of us here, thank you so much for joining us. Miigwech Kinanaskmatin, and have a wonderful night.